Earlier this week, obviously, America suffered yet another tragic school shooting. And Republicans did what they always do. They came out, they tried to deflect from the topic of guns. So what do you know? It's another AR-15 in this case. No, instead, it's the doors, it's the guards, it's the video games, it's the music, whatever. Well, JD Vance is now not just someone commenting on this, he wants to be the VP. And so what he says about this is more important than almost any other Republican. And here's what he had to say.
What is going to solve this problem, and I really do believe this, is look, I don't like this. I don't like to admit this. I don't like that this is a fact of life. But if you are a psycho and you want to make headlines, you realize that our schools are soft targets. And we have got to bolster security at our schools so that a person who walks through the front door We've got to bolster security so that if a psycho wants to walk through the front door and kill a bunch of children, they're not able to.
Yeah, to be clear, if a psycho wants to walk through the front door with a weapon of war that I will do literally nothing to stop them from having, then there's someone that they have to shoot first before they can shoot the students. I vow to you, America, they'll have to pop a guard in the head first before they begin killing second graders. That's my promise to you as JD Vance. And so, look, the fact of life thing has gotten a lot of criticism. And I don't feel like you have to bring up the graphic here, but I saw some strike back against that from the article I saw was on Mediaite, but a lot of Republicans are doing this, saying you're being unfair to JD Vance to say that he's saying these shootings are just a fact of life, when what he was literally saying was it's a fact of life that our schools are soft targets, which is somehow supposed to be better. Yeah. His fact of life is the spin I'm gonna put on this is until every school is encased in a dome of adamantium, then we're not gonna be safe. I will remind everyone, as The Onion often does, we live in the only country where this regularly happens. It does not happen in any other country. And you know what is also true of every other country? None of them are the sort of tough nuts to crack that they're pretending is the only solution to this problem. Okay, the Netherlands are not plagued by literally hundreds of school shootings per year only because there's snipers on the roof of every Dutch school. That is not why they don't have these. That's not why Israel doesn't have school shootings, and London doesn't have school shootings, and Madagascar doesn't have school shootings, and Japan doesn't have school shootings. And every one of these countries has music and has video games, and they have all those sorts of things. They have the internet, they have mental health problems, and yet they don't have these shootings. What do we have that they don't? You already know what the answer is. Whether you're a bleeding heart lib, a full-on commie, or the reddest hat wearing MAGA person in the country, you know the difference between us and them. You just don't care to change it, maybe. That's it. And JD Vance definitely doesn't.
A storm is tearing up the digital media industry. Only our audience can save us in these difficult times. Help us reach our goal of 100,000 new members at tyt.com/team.
And so if people want to attack him for his fact of life stuff, they should. He 100% means it's just the way it is. Now, maybe like Ted Cruz, he'd like better door locks or whatever. Or maybe again, he wants to have a school resource officer that gets to be the first one shot in the back of the head. Maybe he wants those things, but that is not a solution to these problems. He doesn't think it is, nobody thinks that it is. And his focus is not on stopping a problem that he doesn't even really consider to be a problem. His kids don't go to these schools. Ted Cruz's kids don't go to these schools. They don't care what happens in these schools. They care about the donations. They care about not turning off their voters. That's all this is. That's all this has ever been. All right, what do you think?
You take the good, you take the bad, you take them both, and there you have a bunch of dead kids. A bunch of dead kids. Cause we give AR-15s to every single teen. Way to go, dudes. Like, it's just like such an insane, this proves that JD Vance don't got it. Like, even Ted Cruz can show up and be like, you know, I feel bad for the families out there. It really hurts me. My thoughts and my prayers are with them, and this is not a time to politicize it. JD Vance is such a dork bubble that was grown in a lab so that and there were things on his resume. He is the ultimate Frankenstein of warped identity politics in America. He is a guy who on paper lived the hillbilly elegy story. And because of that, because of things in his resume, not things about his personality, not things about any of his talents, he was picked up and chosen by people in an evil think tank and people who had a lot of money that they wanted to use so that they would have to pay less in taxes to become the poster boy for the future of the Republican Party. And only because Donald Trump thought he was so far in the lead over Joe Biden did he say, screw it, I'll go with Vance. He made a movie. And in doing so, it exposes that the truth about this new Donald Trump Republican Party is actually the opposite of what they'd have you think. Donald Trump is an Ivy League billionaire. JD Vance is an Ivy League test tube baby chosen by billionaires. When you hear JD Vance say this stuff, A, he doesn't believe it. B, he's never really had to encounter it, even in his quote, difficult upbringing, which every moment makes me doubt things he said about it even more. And so the way that he describes things like childless cat ladies, like people in this generation who don't want to have kids, about what it's like to raise a kid when you're a normal person just trying to make ends meet. And in this scenario with school shootings, he talks about it like an academic, like an Ivy League, ivory tower academic who thinks he can solve it with all these think tank ideas for which he wrote the foreword. He's not one of us. He's not one of anybody. He is one of the 1%, and he has been chosen to pretend to be a populist. And every second he exposes himself for the fraud that he is.
Yeah, 100%. And look, I agree with you. I think some people would think, well, like, how could these billionaires so misfire in thinking that this guy could be that person? Everybody needs to remember, as disconnected from reality and from the experience of regular people and possessing of charisma or empathy or whatever as JD Vance is, the people working the test tubes are even worse in that. They don't know how people work. They're barely human, basically. And so they take a look at like someone like him and they're like, oh, he's a regular one. No, he's another weirdo. You just can't tell because you're weirder than him.
Well, it just exposes the exceptionalism of Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump is the only person in the history of the modern Republican Party to show up and expose that. Because all the other test tube babies were on the debate stage with him in 2016. The Marco Rubios, the Ted Cruzes, the Jeb Bushes, everybody who was bred for this or selected and put through a farm system for this. All it needed was a TV star to show up and be like, your wife's fat, you're ugly, you got low energy, your hands look weird. And it exposed them. What Trump doesn't understand is that Vance is one of those guys. And so this future of the Republican Party that they want, that they finally were able to capture lightning in a bottle with Donald Trump because his name was in like, pop culture for a long time. And same with Ronald Reagan. Like, there aren't that many of those guys to go around. And that's why they lose on the national level, even though the cards are stacked systematically for them to have an advantage. You all right there, bud?
No, I mean, everything that you're saying is right. It's just this topic is just so utterly frustrating because look, when you do the job that we do, there's a lot of topics that you return to over and over and over and over again. And some of them have a cumulative toll, but the school shoot, like again, like what was it, 20 school shootings ago that we would have done a long rant about how we keep having the same conversation, nothing changes. Like we've had the rant about how nothing changes so many times. Not even that rant can change because nothing changes. They don't care. JD Vance does not care if these shootings happen. And the people who have gotten him to where he's at in terms of the voters, they don't care. They don't actually care. Now, like you could say, no, it's not that they don't care. It's that they think this other thing would be a solution. No, that hypothetically could explain their behavior, but they've seen years and years of them supporting doing nothing and not limiting these weapons. And we know that hundreds of these shootings happen every year. So they don't care that it's not solving the problem. We had a brief period where we stopped people from buying these guns and there were less shootings then. And I don't know, here's a crazy idea. How about we try it? How about this?
We did.
How about we, no, I know, we already did, but it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Here's an idea. How about we limit the sale of these guns for 1 decade? 1 decade. And if it doesn't have a good effect, then in 10 years you can buy them again. How about that? Could we try it? I mean, lives are literally on the line, so maybe we could try it. But you can still have guns. You can still have guns. It's madness.
You look cooler with more of them. Yeah, that's what's amazing. It's like we have definitely tried an assault weapons ban, and I like that. If I'm the Democrats, I just say like, yes, we'll beef up security at schools. I don't see why not. We have to, given what you guys have made of the country. And in the meantime, how about we not sell these weapons? You 3%ers, there's already 3% of people with ARs. You can keep them, stay. But we're gonna stop. We're gonna stop it. Because like you guys are pretending that I just want to actually invite people with guns into schools to shoot people. No, that's what you are doing.
Yeah, I just they can't buy these guns. That should be obvious. If you own these guns and you haven't secured them properly so these kids can get them anyway, then you are going to suffer the legal consequences. How about we try actually clamping down on it? As I've always said, and we'll end on this, the idea that we look at a problem. The problem is people shoot up schools and we're like, what can we do to fix this? And the range of options ends at the front door to the school.
Yeah.
We just assume someone's gonna come in with an assault rifle. We're not gonna do anything about that. So they get here, what can we do now? How about we don't surrender all of the distance between them plotting their attack and the literal kicking in of the front door? How about we don't surrender that when our kids' lives are on the line? But they do. They do. And they can do it because they know that their base has already pre-surrendered all of that. They're perfectly comfortable with not just the school shooters, but the criminals getting the guns that let them gun down cops and gun down people at concerts and gun down people in churches and all of that. We just take as a given that has to happen. Now that we've surrendered that, could we have a door lined with lead? Utterly pathetic. Members make a difference here at TYT. You help make the show happen, and we see you in the chat with your loyalty badge. Click the join button to become a member today.